I think open data is data that anyone can take, use, and share. So it needs an open license, and it needs to be openly available.
Technically, it means data that's available for anybody to use, reuse, republish. It should be free or at least at very low cost, and it should be ideally machine readable, meaning it's in a form like a file that can be downloaded and that computers can use without humans having to input all that data. So more functionally, it's a very, very powerful tool. I talk about it in my book, Open Data Now, as data that can help people identify major social and economic trends.
But when you make all of a data set available, it allows other people to analyze that data, visualize that data, run comparisons, see trends, develop new apps and solutions. So it's really, in short, about the process of opening up a whole data set so that people other than the people who've collected that data can actually make use of it in new ways.
Open data can be anything from, billions of data points from NASA that shows satellite imagery of the world to a small town, New Zealand or America, releasing its budget to its 10,000 residents. The important thing is not about the quantity of the data, the complexity of the data, any of that. It's simply whether or not everybody can access it and whether everybody can reuse it in whatever way they want. Reuse it, analyze it, and publish the results. The amazing thing about this is that there's billions and billions of dollars worth of data that's ready to be used, so that you now can skip that whole stage of accumulating the raw materials of information and just figure out how to use them analytically, how to use them creatively, how to use them in a new business model. So the way in which the open data can work as an accelerator is tremendous.
What makes all of this significant is not simply that the data is available, it's that the data becomes the raw material to engage other people. It's a tool for participation. So the data by itself is really quite meaningless.
A lot of people have compared open data to sort of the new oil for the digital economy.
A lot of agencies have been very, very reluctant to release data that really would have great public use. There's also, I think, a kind of control factor. I mean, it is true that once you let data out into the real world, people will analyze it, they'll talk about it, they'll have opinions about it, you can't control. But that's really the point. The point of open data is to democratize data and to make it possible for anybody to look at this really great resource of information and do with it what they think is going to be most productive and most interesting.
Because it is not free to make data freely available to people at this point. We often have to retrofit old systems. We have to take data that's currently in a shoebox on pen, in pen and pencil, or in an Excel spreadsheet, or in a PDF, and we have to, do things to make it open. It's not about a decision maker simply pushing a button. So everybody wants to know something about data, but it will become hopefully a way of working and a way of deciding and a way of doing that. When government collects data, they open data at the same time. It will not become an afterthought. We will not be talking about, putting up data 3 years after the fact, but we will just be constantly making data available, enabling us to make better decisions more in real time, driven by data, than we're able to do right now.
We don't expect, I'm saying we, our organization, but I think most people in this field don't really expect that a lot of people are going to go directly to a government data set and say, let me download this and analyze it. What we are seeing, though, is a number of intermediaries scrutiny. So I think for people who have the technical skill and the business interest in trying to create a new travel site, a new health site, whatever it is, there's tremendous opportunity. For the rest of us, and I'm not a technologist myself, so I count myself in the rest of us. For the rest of us, I think we're going to see more and more opportunities in these tools. Some of them are going to be provided by government, some of them are going to be provided by business, some will be provided by nonprofit organizations, some will be things you have to pay for.
The point is, I think it's not just about being numerate, it's about the social science skills to draw insight, to formulate a hypothesis and draw insight from data, which is something at the intersection between numeracy and a kind of social science literacy that all of us have the capacity to develop. We have to change whom we hire into government. We also have to change not only how government opens data, but how other kinds of entities open data.
I feel like the open data movement in New Zealand is going pretty well. You've got some great talent. The trick will be in seeing some of the ideas turn into sustainable businesses and sustainable organizations. And I think there's a lot of the sort of sharing of experiences across countries will be beneficial there. Because it's the approach that works in each country is slightly different. And what makes it effective or ineffective is slightly different in each case because the cultural context is different. And I think this can be learned in sharing.
I've seen a lot of estimates now that show in different countries that open data is contributing somewhere between 1 and 2% of GDP, which is, it's a small single-digit percentage, but when you're looking at the entire GDP of a country, it's extremely significant and definitely shows the return on investment for going to the trouble of releasing data in a usable form. Data
is only useful if it helps you navigate to a decision, and it's not the technology that does that. It's not a technological thing. It is largely a cultural change, and in making sure that you get the data in the right context. So I think the key is finding the people who are really willing to move things forward and figuring out as a data advocate how to work with them, how to help them.
So I think there are the evolution towards the recognition that open data in many contexts, though not in all, really will help us to do things better and differently. All of these challenges, I believe, can be better addressed when more people with more diverse ideas come together to solve problems informed by data. And so open data, again, becomes the mechanism by which we do that, but that only becomes possible when we have institutions that are open and collaborative in the way that they work, that are open government.